So this is the first video for the external perspective, and Mark is going to be introducing himself and telling us a little bit about his story. We just want to hear what happened and how it all transpired from there. So Mark, can you tell us how your story started and what exactly happened?
Yes, my experience goes back to 2014. I was working as a correctional officer in a maximum security prison. It was a Tuesday, just any normal Tuesday, my day off. And back in the day, I must say that we were forced, pretty much. It was mandatory overtime to work at the prison, double shifts. And I used to be the guy who worked the night shifts. And that being said, I was very emotionally exhausted from all the events that I was exposed to in the prison, and the load of work altogether, the crazy hours, and the fact that I had to drive an hour each way just to commute to work. So what happened was, on that Tuesday at 7 a.m., when I headed home in my van, I was driving in southern Illinois in a road called Route 3. And Route 3 is pretty much a road that has nothing interesting to it. Just a bunch of cornfields, middle of nowhere type thing, where I was just driving for an hour, listening to my radio shows, music, or whatever was on the radio back then. And it was just another shift that I go home from. But that was the shift that pretty much changed my life. I remember that coming back from work, I didn't feel extremely tired. I didn't feel extremely weird. I didn't know that anything interesting is going to happen that day, besides the fact that it was my day off from work. And I remember driving in my regular road on the speed limit, which was 70 miles per hour. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, and I don't know what happened prior to that, whether I fell asleep or I just closed my eyes or I lost concentration. But all I remember was that in that speed, my van just locked up. Meaning everything that's supposed to be easy to operate on that vehicle was almost impossible. My wheel locked in its place, my brakes locked, and I completely lost control over the vehicle. I remember that in the beginning, very beginning, I started panicking a bit because I didn't know what caused it. But as I was hydroplaning, I came to the realization that I'm probably not going to make it out of this car accident, even though it hasn't been an accident yet, but I just saw myself losing control, and I looked at the speed gauge and I realized that I'm probably not going to make it, or if I make it, I'm going to be severely hurt because of that. And I remember just hydroplaning, and I'm looking at the speed gauge, and instead of the speed gauge going down because I let go of the gas pedal, the speed was going up. Apparently the car losing control caused the car to hydroplane even more, and as a result of that, the speed was increasing instead of decreasing. And all I could remember back then was to try to control the vehicle in a way that I'm going to just crash somewhere but not hit another car, because it was a 2-lane road, and I could notice in the corner of my eye that there's another car coming, and I could see that there was a woman there with kids. I guess the mom was ready to take him to school, and as they were approaching, I promised myself to do anything I can not to hurt them. I didn't want my mistake, my accident, to have other people involved in that. And I remember that's all I thought about, is how do I not hurt other people, because what's done is done. So I remember with every bit of strength that I had left, I was trying, again, the wheel was locked, but I was trying to steer the wheel to the right so I can just go off-road and not hit anybody else in the process. And I remember that split second that turned into almost a minute of me realizing that I'm about to hit a utility pole, or I don't quite remember what was there. There was some sort of a barrier on the road. And I was heading towards it, and the speed was about 80 to 85 miles per hour. And that was my first chance to actually look at death in the eyes. I literally felt like I'm looking at death, and I know that my natural reaction would probably be to panic or to be scared, but it's almost like something in me told me to welcome that moment, or in a way to look forward to that moment. And all I remember was smiling. I wasn't sure if I'm smiling because I didn't expect to go like that and just to end my life just in a random car accident when I'm on my way from work. But it was a smile of like I know where I'm heading and everything is going to be okay. For some reason, those seconds prior to the impact gave me a feeling of security. And I could, till this day, I could not explain what caused it. But then all I remember was heading to that utility pole, looking at the speed, and realizing that I'm probably going to pass after that. I remember smiling and then closing my eyes, and then all I could hear was the loud noise. It was a boom. It was a big explosive sound, like something just got detonated and everything exploded. And the last thing I remember seeing was the airbag, or at least some of the airbag, just starting to deploy before it all went black. And apparently I rolled over 5 times, but I don't remember any of that. All I remember was waking up while I'm upside down in my car, and I could see that I'm completely upside down. And I remember every detail up to this moment, what happened. I remember me probably falling asleep. I remember the car losing control. I remember the speed, and I remember the impact. I remember my thoughts prior to that, but it's all I could remember. And then the most beautiful experience happened. Now, a lot of people over the years have interviewed me. Some featured me in a book that they were writing about these type of experiences. And all these times I was trying to explain exactly what happened, but yet I could not put it into words. What happened to me was, comparing to the situation I was in, it was the most pleasant experience I've ever felt in my life. I felt completely disengaged from my physical body and any physical pleasure that this world has to offer. See, the feeling was that I don't need anything physical to satisfy me, to be completely full and happy. I was upside down, knowing what happened, and realizing that the pain, the suffering, the agony, the sadness, everything is just going to be part of it, but it's going to come soon. And none of that happened. I felt at home, though I didn't know where home was. I felt at peace, though I really didn't know what peace was. I felt like my body was not my body, and all I took with me was my soul. I felt a complete feeling of bliss. Yet my memory was with me. My thoughts were with me. But at the same time, I started little by little losing every sense, every physical sense that I had. I could not smell. I could not taste. I could not feel the touch of myself, me touching myself. There was no feeling, no physical feeling whatsoever. I was looking forward to feel some sort of pain, but the pain never came. But what was the most, I don't want to say intimidating feeling, but most bizarre feeling was the fact that I lost all sense of sound or hearing. The silence was peaceful. The silence was something that my soul was almost craving for. I remember enjoying this silence. I remember being in a position and in a spot that would normally cause any person to scream, to yell for help, to panic, and I just existed. I felt like I was floating in the air, but yet still at the scene of the accident. And I felt like somebody's there with me. Somebody's there making sure that I'm protected. Somebody was there to make sure that nothing hurts. Something made sure that I feel at home. And that's exactly what I felt. I didn't see a white light. I didn't see myself hovering above my body like most people say. I just felt that I was in my truest, most purest of forms, that I was just a soul. But that soul remembered what happened. I remembered every detail because people often ask if I kind of lost conscience when I was involved in the impact. Did I go out? Did I pass out and just woke up and remembering? And I keep telling people that aside from the rollover part, I was fully aware of what was going on. And I remember the peace and the feeling that I'm finally free. It's like I was chained by so many chains and locks, and I was free. My soul was free. I remember that I didn't think about anything else because normally we can lose all our senses, but we can still have our thoughts. And I didn't have them. I literally just existed, and I was in a state of nothing but pure pleasure. Now, it's an irony comparing it to the situation that I was in, but I enjoyed it. I was upside down, and though I was very, very comfortable and nothing really felt like it's going to harm me, I still wanted to get out. I was trying to manage to get out. And I remember that everything I was touching was just air. I was like in a dream state, like nothing I will do will affect anything physical, and vice versa. And all I can remember was looking out the window and I saw that field. And I still told myself in my head, could just take a look at this. It's so surreal. Like you're supposed to be dead. You're supposed to be hurting. You're supposed to be set on fire. But yet you're in the most comfortable position, in the most comfortable moment, in the most comfortable situation you've ever been in. And I didn't want it to end. But yet I was looking outside, and the field looked very normal, but yet empty, and in a way foggy. And then I saw this character, this woman. That woman was dressed in clothes that fit probably the year 1800. She was dressed in black. She was in her mid-60s. And all I could remember from her face is a burn scar that she had on one of her cheeks. And all I remember was that woman was the only one there, and she was pacing, walking back and forward, up and down. And I remember saying to her, not saying to her, like waving at her and trying to get her attention to try to help me and save me out of that car and rescue me. And all I could remember is her saying no. She was waving and nodding her head like no, like I'm not going to help you. And normally I remember that I would most likely try to be upset or just ask the woman for help and be demanding help almost. And I remember that in this case, I was giving her the benefit of the doubt. I was worried that she might be afraid that she's going to do more damage than good. So I didn't judge her. I was free of judgment. My soul was completely at peace. I didn't have any anger in me or any kind of feelings that were negative. And note, I was supposed to be in the most negative of spots in my life during that accident. I was supposed to be panicking. I was supposed to be just screaming for help. And I was just enjoying myself. As hard as it might seem, but I was just enjoying myself. And when that lady, that scarred faced lady who really dressed funny for the time, did not want to help me, I remember that I didn't want to judge her at all. All I could remember is telling myself that if I close my eyes for a little bit longer and open them, I might have the strength or better success getting out of the car. So that's exactly what I did. I closed my eyes, and for a split second, not even a split second, it was a split of a split second, I opened my eyes and everything came back to me just like a movie. Just like a movie. The sound came back. Everything was so loud. I remember the radio playing in my van. I was upside down. It was a lot of sound, like air sound, pipes cracking sound, a lot of like and smoke coming and fuel fumes and weird smells, and a lot of indications that told me that if I'm not getting out of here soon, that car is going to be set on fire and I'm going to probably explode. So if that didn't kill me, this for sure will. And I remember being back to myself. I felt a little bit of pain. I felt the pressure of the whole driver's car squashed. And I must tell you, the fact that the only place in the vehicle that was severely damaged was the driver's side, was where I was sitting. Because the passenger side next to me was almost untouched. And I remember opening my eyes and start smelling all these smells, gasoline, smoke. I had a little bit of blood dripping out of my forehead, and I just felt pressure, and I started to feel anxiety. I felt like I shouldn't be there, and I was trying to realize what was going on between the first blissful, pleasant experience that I had versus that stressful experience that happened as soon as I opened my eyes. And I remember that it wasn't even 3 or 4 seconds of realization, everything I told you, before I see this paramedic rushing towards the window of my vehicle that was upside down again. And I remember him screaming at me the whole time, saying, "Do not move, do not move." And all I could say, or all I could remember saying, was that I'm okay, let me out of here. And the gentleman said that I was not okay. And instead of getting me out, he was giving me IV through the window and told me to cooperate and not move. And I remember asking him, I said, "Why are you giving me IV instead of just getting me out of here and taking me to the hospital?" And I remember the gentleman said, "Well, I can't get you out because the firefighters will be here shortly, and they have to use a tool called the Jaws of Life, which is a hydraulic tool that's supposed to rip the car open and extract whoever is in there." And I remember saying, "Well, that's fine, but I'm still fine." And all I remember him saying was screaming. And the more he was screaming, the more and more I could see to the distance. And I saw like dozens of people gathering around the vehicle and outside and in the road. And I could see a lot of emergency cars as well. And then I realized like, wow, I did have a serious accident if all these people are here. But at the same time, I knew that I was fine. I knew that I was safe. And I knew that I was protected. So the next thing was me just standing there waiting, and it wasn't really a long time because everything happened so fast in real life, while in the experience everything happened in slow motion. So I remember the firefighters coming and using these tools, and I remember closing my eyes throughout this whole time because I didn't really realize what they were doing and what they were doing it, and I just kind of let them do what they do. And soon enough, they extracted me out of the car. And again, I was back in my physical body, so I kind of felt and was aware of everything physical is going on. And all I could remember saying was, "Everything is okay, everything is okay," before I had a morphine shot, like an injection, without even asking me, right into my stomach. And I felt a burning at first, and I screamed, and I said, "Why are you guys doing this to me? I just want to go home, I'm okay." And they kept screaming that I was not okay, and they rushed me into the ambulance. And during the time in the ambulance, I was trying to kind of regroup and see what's going on with me. And I remember there was a sheriff lady, an officer that's sitting down there in front of me in the hospital, and I'm laying down writing a report. And I was just trying to talk to her and ask her a question, and she kept saying like, "Hey, maybe it's better that you don't talk because you need to go to the hospital and you're hurt." And I kept saying, "I'm not hurt at all." And she was like, "Well, what's your question?" And I said, "Well, during my accident, there was a lady walking back and forth there, and I waved at her to help me, and all she could do is nod and never help me. Do you know whatever happened to this lady? Do you know if it's against the law to not help somebody in such distress?" And I remember the paramedic then answered and said, "Well, I don't know what you're talking about, but we were the first in the scene. There was nobody in there." And I kind of realized, I was like, wow, so I know I wasn't dreaming. I know I wasn't hallucinating because I remembered everything from start to finish, but yet there wasn't a lady. So then I asked myself, was there even an experience when I felt no pain and no feeling and no physical sense at all, just a spiritual one? And that experience took me to the hospital, and I remember that I kept to myself and said that if I will ever speak about it, people might think that I lost my mind. But I then knew that I probably passed, and I was the only one aware of it. And I remember saying to myself, well, it doesn't hurt to die. If anything, you feel like you are reborn. And I felt the most alive I've ever felt during that incident. So that's pretty much what happened at my car accident, aside from the other miracles that happened following the accident.
Thank you for sharing your story with me. I just have a couple of questions, and I just wanted to say it's amazing that you survived such a major car accident. And I'm sure everyone would love you to share your photos of the car. Maybe you can add them to the end of this podcast. I just have a couple of questions for you. So the first question would be, were you spiritual at all before all of this happened?
It's a good one. Well, I was always spiritual. I was always curious. I was spiritual. I was wondering what happens after we die. I was always into this type of movies. I never really practiced anything spiritual. I'm not religious. I never practiced my religion prior to that. And I never really, aside from being fascinated by it, I was really never practicing. To me, in order to prove me somebody had a near-death experience back then, you had to show me solid proofs. And I would argue this proof normally. But after what happened to me, I start digging deeper and deeper into that subject and into what happened to me. And because of the miracle that followed that, it left me no room for doubt. And I truly believe that my soul was either reincarnated to my body, to the same body, to the same soul, or was reborn again in the same older body. I was 33 at the time. Because a lot of things have changed. My life completely changed. The way I see things completely changed. And it's not necessarily because the accident itself or the incident itself taught me something different, or taught me or showed me to be a different person, and I'm kind of like trying to be good because of that. But no, it all happened automatically. It's almost like I don't recognize the person that I was before the accident. So.
Okay. And during the accident, did time speed up at all, or did it slow down? Do you remember anything of that nature?
Yeah, when it comes to time, I remember there was absolutely no time. There was nothing. People have to understand that I believe that a lot of people who have a near-death experience are really in a threshold of death. They are in between life and death. There's almost like a hallway, almost like a waiting room. When you become the purest form of your existence, which is the soul, but yet you're still not all the way there crossing over, so you still have your memories from your physical past or physical life, and you're kind of like in between. So a lot of people that talk about their NDEs, which I watch all of them, and I think it's beautiful because everybody does have a different experience. Every soul has a different path. Just like we do have a different life path, we also have a different death path, or at least the way there. And the way there for me was, I really call it a threshold. I really call it a hallway, like in between the room to the lounge. There's a hallway where you just wait. But at the same time, you have a lot of answers to many of our questions. So, is there a death? What happens after death? Do we really die? No, we just transform to a different state of consciousness. That is the ultimate description of what I've been through and what I think a lot of people are going through with death. It's just you change, you transform in consciousness first time. And then if you continue to pass and you actually pass on, you cross over, then you continue to change to a different consciousness. And my consciousness was a consciousness of just pure soul. There's absolutely no time. There's no thoughts, there's no touch, there's no smell, there's no feeling, there's no pain. It's just you. And everything was positive. And the reason I know everything was positive is because everything about that incident should have been the most negative. But yet, when I look back at it, I never look at it with fear. I never look at it with regret. I never look at it with, oh God, I want to avoid that again. I mean, the way of looking at it is like, if this is what happens when we die, then I'm not afraid to die. If this is how a soul feels like outside of this physical body, then in a way I can't wait to be outside my body. And of course I have loved ones and life to live here and a purpose to be wishing this. I don't wish this upon me, but I'm also saying I'm not afraid of that anymore.
Okay. Do you think you have a new mission in life?
Definitely. Since it happened, I'm, for the first few years I was really, really, really scared about what the public is going to, how the public is going to react to my story, because many people nowadays are very practical, and when you tell them stories like that, they either think you're crazy, or they think that you just trying to convert them to something, or they're trying to say, or some people say, well, you had an accident and you wrecked your car, so you probably were out and hallucinating. And I keep trying to say, I'm not hallucinating. There's no reason for me to make up something that never happened. I remembered the accident during my experience. My knowledge was expanded. My horizons were limitless. And I was just who I really am. I was the person, the being, the light, the soul that I was. I just didn't have the body to cause me to complain physically. I didn't have anything else to get me to be paranoid. I was just myself.
So I'm going to end my questions there. We're going to have other podcasts available where other people can ask you questions. And we, of course, are going to share other people's stories on the external perspective in the future. And I hope everyone subscribes, and we'll take it from there. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add with regards to what you want people to take out of this podcast?
Yes, I'm looking forward to talk about the second part, which was the miracle that happened to me during my NDE. Because I must say that when people have the near-death experiences, a lot of the people usually talk about them being in hospital beds and going through either an operation or very close to dying because of medical complications. Some will talk about accidents, but they're all describe the trauma that happened to the physical body that resulted in their near death, and then they could see the spiritual being stands out, and this is usually what these stories are about. But in my story, I had something different. I had something that I don't think anybody told before, because since my experience, I like to keep track and watch other people's stories and find similarities. But I think that in my story, the fact that I looked at death in the eye and saw death coming, and I truly believe I was saved, because the next episode, the next chapter of my story will be describing the miracle that, to any kind of scientific fact, would show that it was a greater miracle than many, many people think about my accident. A lot of people see me being alive as the miracle, but they're kind of not really proving and showing the facts and the circumstances that could have easily taken my life. And I'm going to just say it in a nutshell before I talk about it more briefly, is that the side of the car that I was in looked like there's tons of huge metallic razor blades all over. The sheet metal, the aluminum part of my car created some sort of daggers that were focused mainly on the driver's side where I was. And I came out of there with no scratch. But I think that I will elaborate it after in the next time we speak.
Okay, great. Well, we look forward to hearing your next stories on future podcasts. And if anyone wants to subscribe and share their stories, please feel free to email us on the external perspective 2022 @gmail.com, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Thank you.